So how have you been keeping yourself busy during these crazy, crazy times?
It has been crazy. We were fortunate enough to actually finish our season March 11th, I believe, and we flew back from Russia, and I was in Ontario around Toronto up until about 2 weeks ago, and I decided to come back across the border to visit some family in Illinois and Arizona, and I leave for Russia again on Friday. So it's been a whirlwind, but it was really nice to spend some time at home and just take in what it was giving you. It's hard to stay positive in these times, but we kept our health, and it was a really nice break, to be honest.
How have you managed? Have you found it easy to keep fit without being able to play games and stuff? Or has that been a challenge to keep that the motivation to keep going, sort of thing?
I feel like it's really hard to stay in hockey shape if you're not on the ice. So just finding different ways with, obviously with it being winter when we got back, doing a lot of indoor workouts with a bike. We bought some free weights luckily before everything closed down. So we were able to stay somewhat fit. And then when it got nicer out, we were able to work out outside, go for runs, go for outdoor bike rides, rollerblading. And the rinks were slowly starting to open. So that first time you go back on the ice, it's like you've never skated before, but slowly getting our hockey legs back.
The common phrase I hear whenever I ask about what was someone's first skate back like, it's always, I felt like Bambi.
Oh, it's actually embarrassing. Like, luckily there was a group of us that went out for all of our first times, so we could just laugh with each other and stuff, but it's awful. Like, I had to double check to make sure I didn't have my skate guard still on because I felt like I did. I didn't, unfortunately, but yeah, once you get the first one out of the way, then you're much better off.
So how prepared do you think you are for going back to competition in Russia then?
Yeah, we actually start competition pretty quick. We have about a week of practice, if that, and then right on to our first games. I think it'll be good. I've been on the ice quite a bit the past month to month and a half, so just really dialed in on that. So we'll hope that we can roll the lines the first few games to get our legs under us, but I think it'll be okay.
And I'm going to get into detail in with the Russian side of things in a little bit. But and as we're the same age, I'm not going to say we're going to go back a long way. We're going back a little bit. Where did ice hockey come into the life of Megan Bozek?
I have two older brothers, and they were always at the rink skating, and my parents would have to bring me along, of course. And at the age of 2.5, I wanted to do exactly what my brothers were doing. So they threw me on the ice, and my dad and myself are still the ones playing. My dad's a referee for local teams around here, so he stays busy with that, but I've loved it since the first day I put skates on.
Does that mean you have to like all referees then?
That's a tough I don't have to. I try to respect their decisions on the ice, whether it be good or bad. It's crazy though. My dad comes home with some stories and I'm like, how are parents and kids talking to you like this? Like, I would never imagine talking to someone like that, even in the heat of the moment. Like, just say it under your breath. Don't say it out loud, please. But he's still going strong, so good for him.
So you've never had a misconduct for going back at a referee then?
I can confidently say no.
Oh, that's impressive.
I knock on wood, it won't happen, but I never say never.
Well, if he's a referee, that kind of ingrains that respect in the position for you quite early, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at what point did you then realize that you wanted to give it a go at hockey and pursue it as a potential career path?
I played a lot of sports growing up, which I think was great because I didn't just focus on one. Even throughout my high school years, so grade 9 and grade 10, I also played softball. And then I had to make the decision because both were getting very demanding. So I chose hockey, and I just loved it. I knew if I had the option of what sport to go to and when, it would always be to the rink. And that's where my lifelong friends have come from in all of that. So I knew that I wanted to pursue it, and my dream was to play college hockey. And once I realized that there was things beyond that, then I started setting different goals, different dreams for myself, and was able to pursue them. So it's pretty special.
Now, when you're growing up, who are the players who you're like watching and you're like emulating when you go out on the ice and things like that?
Being from around Chicago, Cwhl was a hometown hero. Her whole family were heroes around here. So, and getting to know her throughout the years has just been incredible. But watching her, and then my favorite player was Mike Modano. Loved watching him. And obviously when the Blackhawks went on their run, just being fans of them and fans of the game, it was pretty special to see in our city. So I loved Cwhl growing up and Mike Modano.
Then the good thing about the Blackhawks is they've probably got the nicest jersey in the entire NHL.
I'll quote you on that. I completely agree.
I'm a Rangers fan, so I'm going to get shot down for that. So.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Uh-oh.
So you said your dream was to play college hockey. And then one of the things that I think people over here don't always realize is how big college sports is in America. So can you give it a little bit of context?
Depending on the sport, you live, eat, breathe, sleep college sports. College football is obviously in some capacity bigger than the NFL here, just because these stadiums get packed and kids going. And my brother actually went to University of Alabama, never visiting the campus before, but they had his major, and he's a big football fan. So without visiting, just went and had the best 4 years of his life. So it's like someone follows a religion, to be honest, in watching this, and with the football and the basketball and the hockey on campus, it just becomes what you do on the weekends. So it's absolutely incredible. I was really fortunate to go to University of Minnesota and play all 4 years there. We finally got a football stadium on campus. So that was really exciting to be able to go to games, because before that it was just in the city, which wasn't far, but just having it on campus and feeling that college game day. And our men's and women's basketball teams were outstanding, and our women's volleyball team and men's hockey. You represent and you support your university and even your league. So whether we made it to a tournament or basketball made it to a tournament, you always root for people in your conference because you want to see your conference on top.
Now, what was it that led you to choosing Minnesota?
It was close to home. It's a 6-hour drive for my parents, which was great. So
Close.
I knew, well, yeah.
Not over here, that's not close.
We're used to living out of our cars and traveling for hockey games. So it's, the drive was like the back of our hands. We knew it. But when I stepped on campus there, I knew that I could call that home for the next 4 years. It was a really easy decision for me. They had what I wanted to study, and it was just a comforting feeling when I went there and met the girls and met the staff and visited all of the school. It's a very big campus, but seeing what it had to offer was incredible.
I say British people don't like to travel 20 minutes, so 6 hours being close is going to be an interesting comment.
It's honestly like, we drive so much for hockey. Like growing up, my league was based out of Michigan. So I'd say 2 or 3 weekends a month, we would drive 5 hours to Michigan on a Friday morning and drive 5 hours back on Sunday night. And it was like nothing. It was just another day.
And then when you get to Minnesota, you spoke about meeting the girls. You had a pretty incredible teammate that first year in Ncaa. Could you tell then how good she was going to be?
Yeah, we were roommates our first year. Well, so we were in the same graduating class. So myself, Becky Cordum, she was from Minnesota, and then Nora and Mira Yaloshua were the 2 Finnish girls that came in. So the 4 of us roomed together our first year, and it was so fun. Like, you just learn so much about their culture and where they grew up and how they grew up and everything. But it was always funny because whenever they would travel back to Finland or even spend time with their Finnish friends on other teams on the weekend, they would come back speaking full Finnish, like no English in the apartment. and their accents would be so heavy. It's like they had forgotten like they were speaking English just 2 days prior to that. So it's like we'd have to remind them so many times, like, okay, speak English, like, please speak English now. But she'll, we were lucky enough to play together last year, and then I'll see her again on Saturday when we get to Russia.
And did she teach you any Finnish curse words then? Because that's always what happens when different cultures get around each other. The first thing you teach each other is curse words.
The only Finnish words I remember are curse words, so yes.
Yeah, we had a Russian on our team a few years ago, and he just taught everyone all the bad words. That was it.
Yeah. You hear it more often than not.
And as you're going along in Minnesota, like, you kind of get some really good players come and join that program. You like Amanda Kessel comes in, Hannah Brandt comes in, Lee Steckline comes in. I've done all my research for this, as you can tell. Could you tell that program was just going from strength to strength through the years you were there?
Yeah, and even before I had gotten there, they had Monique and Jocelyn Lamoureux on it the year prior, Gigi Marvin, Sarah Erickson, Chrissy Wendell, Natalie Darwitz. They had these household names that you aspire to be one day, and to put on the same jersey they had put on is a pretty special feeling. But just seeing the teams grow, like you said, year after year, and making the NCAA tournament, 3 out of our 4 years we made it. My sophomore year, my second year there, but got eliminated before the Frozen Four. But there's just something really special about Minnesota, and I feel like it recruited itself and what they had to offer, and just the people you're surrounded by, and the coaching staff that we had were just great. But then you see Lee and Hannah, you have Nora there, like you said, Amanda Kessel. It's incredible. And Danny Cameronisi there. It's a dream, to be honest.
Do you remember your first game for Minnesota?
I do.
I'm hoping it went well, otherwise it's going to be a bad question.
I think we won. I can't remember who it was against, though.
Who were your big rivals at that school? Who would your rivals be? Our
rivals were Wisconsin.
Okay.
Every time it was just a border battle. That was our biggest rival, and like in-state Minnesota Duluth. So those were always head-to-head matches. It was so fun to play in those games and get up for those weekends.
And I'm guessing that's when I imagine the crowds are pretty good anyway, but I imagine then is when people, for those rivalry games, that's when it gets rowdy.
Yeah, we actually held a very good crowd because we had our own rink on campus. So it seated maybe upwards of 3,000. And even going to play at Wisconsin, they would always do a fill the bowl game versus us. So they had like 10,000 people one time, and it's televised so people can watch. So those games were, always great, but we'd always get a great crowd, and we always had a good student section, which I think was fun. We would support other athletes, and then other athletes would support us. So I think that's what made it such a great community there at Minnesota.
And what did you study while you were there? And how did you find playing and studying, the combination of that?
I studied sport management, and they give you the tools to succeed. So it's up to you to stick to that, but they offer you extra tutoring services, extra study halls, and you just have to be diligent with talking to your professors about missing, because if we traveled, we'd miss the Friday classes. So staying on top of that. But I found the balance to be really great because you could get all your schoolwork done in the morning. We had afternoon skate, and sometimes you had night class, but you just have to balance. So it wasn't much different from high school for me because I was traveling a lot anyway. So I knew I had to get my schoolwork done and study. And the only difference was we would take tests on the road for Minnesota. So if you had an exam, you would have to get it proctored. Someone would administer it to you and watch you and sit in the room, one of our staff. And that you're there at school to be a student first, and an athlete is just a perk. So you have to make sure you're following your studies in order to succeed at athletics.
Well, that's the thing, is like the education part of it is such a big deal behind getting to play the game.
It is, because you have to maintain a certain grade point average, and you want to finish all 4 years with a degree. We don't have the luxury yet of playing professional and making a living wage, and that will come, but we don't have that. So we base our future on hopefully following our dreams, but then also getting a job that we went to school for to study.
And then I think your third year in Minnesota was kind of like the first big year for you, because that's the year you went to go and play in the World Championships. So you won the NCAA Championship, and you get to go and play in the World Championships with Team USA. Now, obviously, you've been involved in the Team USA program a few years prior when you were the under-18s of the World Junior Championships. What's it like getting into that program?
Putting on that USA jersey it still gives me chills every time I go to a camp, every time I go to a tournament, because it's something that you can't take for granted, because it can be there one day and not the next. So winning the U18 championship in Germany was really special, and I'm still teammates with some of those girls, so it's pretty fun to be along with them on that ride. But making my first senior national team was really special, and then winning the NCAA championship and then leaving like 4 days after to go for World Championships, and we hosted that one in Vermont. So my first World Championships, we hosted. My family obviously got to go, so it was really, really cool.
And then how is the process for getting into that team? Because I've heard stories. I've had, like I said to you, I've had three of the Canadian girls on here, and they seem to go through this. The process to get into the national team just seems insane. And then the process of them getting told they've made it, where they have to come to a building at a certain time to avoid each other and not be told. Is it the same for the Team USA?
It is. That's like an Olympic process. And with camps, you get an email that you're invited to a camp, and then if they pick a tournament team from that, you all sit in a room, and every coach has their own style of how they like to announce it, but our names will be projected onto a screen. If you're on it, great, you'll stay for another week. If not, then they'll give you your flight itinerary and you're flying home the next day. So it's business. We're there to compete and make a spot, and you just have to leave knowing that you put your best foot forward, whether you're on that roster or not. If you can look at yourself and say you've done everything you could to put yourself into contention, then you did all you could. But it's savage. It's crazy. It's sad. It's happy. You make it, your friends don't. It's not a comforting or easy feeling for anyone. But it's just part of the process. And when you've gone through it once, you kind of know what to expect. But if it's your first time, you're sitting on the edge of your seat, not knowing what to expect, and it's really hard. And
then you get into that World Championships team. Did you have an eye on the Olympics at that point? You know, I mean, like, you know, if you like, because obviously if you're in the World Championships then and the year after, you're obviously going to be in contention for the Olympics that's coming up in 2014. And I imagine you've got a lot of stuff to play for before then, but you must have half an eye on it.
Yeah, you always think about it in the back of your head, but it's hard to look ahead because anything can happen. Knock on wood, injury, anything. So you're really focused on the task at hand and proving that you deserve a spot on this roster, the next roster, and ideally the Olympic roster. So you have to focus on performing and showing the world what you can do out there. But it's always in the back of your mind.
So let's talk, before we get back into international stuff, I want to go about NCAA championships. What's it like winning that first NCAA championship?
It was crazy. Winning it in Duluth, with Duluth not making it, is fun. It's funny because you expect someone hosting it, but they picked these hosts like before. But we had known that building very well, and just having all of our fans there and celebrating with your family and your teammates is just it's a weekend I'll never forget. And then my last year, we actually hosted the NCAA tournament. So winning it at home in front of a sold-out crowd with all of our fans, almost all of our fans, and going undefeated that season was just, it writes itself as one of, honestly, the greatest sports stories in history, I think.
And how hard is it to do that back-to-back as well? Because like you said, you won it the next year as well. So going back-to-back in that kind of thing is,
Yeah.
I suppose you're forced single elimination, isn't it?
It is.
Losing, you're gone.
Yeah, and going undefeated all season, it just puts extra pressure on you. But we were up for the challenge. We were up for the task. We knew we had a great team. We were going to do whatever it took to win. And that's exactly what we did, and we did it together. We didn't have any butting of heads or drama or any of that. We were such a close group, and it was our family. You see them so much more than you see your actual family. So it was just such a great team, and I have nothing bad to say about any girl on that team.
And that's one of the, when you talk to people who have won championships, that's always almost the common theme is the team was so close and the bond was so strong. It's almost more important than having the most skilled players.
100%. We knew what it took to win, and we knew how to do it together. It wasn't, we had Amanda Cussell on our team. We had Nora Ratu in net. We had, like you said, Hannah Brantley, Steckline. It was a special group, a very, very special group. But we just knew how to do it together. And that was such a fun team to be a part of, from the staff down.
And then you say it's a special group. You got to be the captain of that group. And you hadn't worn A before that. Did you know that was coming, or was that a complete surprise when you got named the captain?
It was a very big surprise to me. And I appreciated that our coach pulled Bethany Browsen and I into his office one day before the season started to tell us. It's special. It's something that it doesn't matter if I wear a letter on my jersey. I've always considered myself a leader in my own way. But just having that and being recognized for that was really special. So I was very surprised.
So what kind of leader are you? Are you one of these guys who's always, are you loud? Are you vocal in the room, or are you one of those, quietly brooding type of leaders?
I'd say I vocalize what I think should happen, what should go on, whether it's to the whole group, whether it's to individuals, but just always being a listener and always being there. I've just, like I said, I've been lucky to be on teams that we've had that throughout the whole entire room, with someone talking, everyone listens, and vice versa. So.
And then, like I say, hockey players don't do. I try and get hockey players to talk about personal accolades all the time, and they never enjoy doing it. But you won Defensive Player of the Year that year. That must have been a really cool award to win on a personal level.
Yeah, it's always special to get recognized for your hard work throughout the season, and I'm sure every other defenseman is very much deserving of it as well. But just it capped off that season to just be incredible. Everything throughout that year was amazing.
So when you look back on, you can tell with the smile on your face when you talk about your time in college that it obviously had a massive impact on you. What would you say the biggest lesson you learned was from those 4 years? It's a deep question.
Oh, that's a very good question. I loved Minnesota. If I could move back there and raise a family, I would in a heartbeat. You learn lessons about, I think, every team you're on, every person that you sit next to in the locker room, that you sit across from, that you're learning from. You learn stuff from your staff. But I think the biggest thing is you have to do whatever it takes. Whether that's in hockey, in life, in school, it doesn't matter. If you can put your best foot forward and you did whatever it took to put yourself in that position, then you're right where you should be. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that everyone around you makes you a better person if you surround yourself with good people. And my 4 years, I was surrounded by the best people.
Was it always defenseman for you? Was there ever any? Because you put up quite a lot of points still. So was there ever a point where you wanted to play forward, or is it just always you enjoyed playing defense?
No, I played goalie at the age of 6.
Oh wow!
No one else volunteered. So I took it upon myself to volunteer myself. No, I've always played defenseman.
So just because you get to play more minutes, that's the usual reasoning I hear.
Less skating.
Just to glide backwards.
You know what? I don't agree with that comment anymore. It's a whole different game from forward to defenseman. It is
But
I've
it's more
tried
ice.
forward. It's crazy. I love seeing the whole play in front of me. Having the option to rush that puck, to join that rush, to stay back, be a stay-at-home defenseman. I've always enjoyed that aspect of the game.
And when that final year in college finishes, now the way I understand it worked back then is that there's two professional leagues in existence for women in North America. You've got the Cwhl and the NWHL, and they both run a draft at the same time. Did you get drafted into both of them or one of them, or how did that work for you?
So I got drafted into the CWHL because the NWHL wasn't in existence yet.
Okay.
So it was a pretty easy decision for me. So when I graduated in 2013, I had made the Olympic centralization in June of 2013. And then we moved to Boston. We had the Olympics in 2014. And then I ended up moving to Toronto and playing for the Toronto Furies, the 2014-2015 season. And then the 2015-2016 season was the first start for the NWHL.
And that's when you went to Buffalo. You went to Buffalo, didn't you, Dan?
And I went to Buffalo, yeah, which was great because I was able to commute from Toronto. So it wasn't far, which was really good. So I played there for 2 years. And yeah, it was great. It was start of a new league. Obviously there's hiccups and bumps and bruises along the way, but whenever I can put on my skates and play hockey, know that I'm growing the game for the future generations.
And so if just before we get into CWHL and NWHL, I want to talk about Sochi, because that must have been the most incredible experience. Despite what happened in the final game, you must look back on it now with fond memories.
Yeah, that was my dream. That was my hard work, missing school dances, missing hanging out with friends, going to bed at 8 p.m. because I knew I had to be up at 4 a.m. to go to the rink, and all the sacrifices that not only myself have made, but my family has made as well. It was worth it in that moment to skate out for my first game there and see my family in the stands. It's a surreal moment for me. I know it's a surreal moment for them. But coming home with an Olympic medal is something I never thought I would do, and to put that into real life is really special.
When does it hit you that you're out there? Is it the first game, or is it when you're at those opening ceremonies and you're there with the flag and things like that?
We unfortunately didn't go to opening ceremonies because we played the next day at 11.
Oh, that's
yeah. So
that's bad scheduling.
Yeah, that was a decision we had to make as a group because you're on your feet for a really long time for opening ceremony. So we decided not to go, but we got dressed up. We took photos. That first game, stepping on the ice for the first time, seeing the Olympic rings, and it just hit you all at once. And
then the one thing I like to ask is that during, like, normal, when things are normal, you're fighting for attention. As a professional women's sports person, you're fighting for attention. When the Olympics come around, the lights start to burn bright and it's instantly burning bright. How did you deal with that change in attention that you receive when that comes around?
You have to let it not bother you. And I think it helped playing games before that versus Canada, having media there. And the building wasn't too much bigger than some of the NHL buildings we've played in and haven't sold out, but close to. So that was still similar, but a lot more TV cameras and flashing lights and whatnot. But you have to know the reason why you're there and what you're fighting for and what you're working for. And just seeing those girls doing it with you it helps you calm down a bit and relax. Just staying focused on the task at hand.
And then I know that you have to win the other games, but the media always sell it as it's always going to come down to Canada versus America. Is that your mindset going in there? We have to get to that final game against them. Like, we have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have to get to that final game and play them.
You always want to, because that's your heavy rival. But anything can happen, and we see that in the World Championships last year with Finland beating Canada. So at the drop of the puck, you have to be ready, and you have to win to advance, and that's what we had to do. And
then that final game, it didn't go in America's favor in the end, but when you watch it back, what an incredible game that was.
It's, yeah. I mean, an inch to the left or the right, it would have been a different outcome. So it's, it's crazy to think about. It's a game of inches.
Well, it all started with that really unlucky bounce off, I think it was of Casey Bellamy, wasn't it? The puck hit her, goes in, and then it's,
yeah.
That's what just started their little comeback inside the last.
Right. So, just still to consider myself an Olympian and have that memory is pretty special.
So how long is it after that game that it does settle in that you were an Olympian? It was special. Like, I imagine after the game, you hate hockey. You never want to play hockey ever again.
You have to give yourself a few weeks. You have to digest so much that's just happened in a matter of a month. You want to share it with people. You also don't want to talk about hockey. And so I ended up going back to Boston for a few days to say bye to my billet family and say bye to the girls and whatnot. And then I ended up driving to Toronto, and I came back to Chicago, and I took like a week just to do nothing. I ended up going to the outdoor game in Chicago at Soldier Field, the Hawks versus the Penguins. Just really digesting it all, eliminating everything to think about it. And then slowly, when I had started seeing people and talking to people, it makes you realize that it's much more than yourself. It's a lot bigger than you. And again, to come home with a medal, it's not the color we wanted, but to show that your hard work, in the end, it did pay off. Obviously not in our favor, but to have that is great.
You get the medal, you get the memories for a lifetime of being out there with well, imagine all your closest friends, because you're with you. Like, the NHL players have been in a bubble for a month. When you go to the Olympics, you're in a bubble with your team. So
right, yeah, no, exactly. It was good.
You come back from there and then straight into like CWHL. How did you find? What is the standard like of the CWHL at that point?
It was great. We all played in it. Canadians, Americans. We were all dispersed onto teams. You kind of got to pick where you could play, so that was nice. My husband is Canadian, so that's why I ended up there. So it actually worked out really well. The training was good. Our team was good. The competition was great.
Are there any different? Obviously, the year after you made the move to the NWHL, are there any differences? Obviously, one doesn't exist anymore. Are there any differences between the two, like, leagues, as it were? Like, did you feel like when you moved to Buffalo, did you feel any intangible differences from when you were in Toronto outside of location?
We played more games in the CWHL for sure, because we play back to back usually. With the NWHL, we'd bus sometimes 7 hours to play one game. So I think that was tough. The travel was a bit longer for us. And it wasn't as good of competition, I would say, just because in the CWHL you had the Canadians and the Americans, where the NWHL was very heavily with just American players. So I think that was a big difference.
And when playing in the NWHL, you do get to win. You win the NWHL. You win the Isabel Cup. That must have been that's a cool accolade to have.
Yeah. I mean, the second year, we had made the finals the year before. To win the next year, when we definitely should not have won.
Why shouldn't you have won?
The Boston team they had so many of my national teammates. They had a great team. I don't know if they lost a game all year, to be honest. But we put up a fight. got shots on net and the bounces went our way. So it was really special to win that and have that memory for sure.
And one of the things that I don't know if it was ignorance on my part or what, but from having these conversations with people like you, with Sarah Nurse, Natalie Spooner, you realize the things that women hockey players have to go through that men don't. I was shocked when I found out that women professional players have to buy their own stick tape. That absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah, that's the reality of women's sports. It's insane. If you we'd get tape at the beginning of the year. When it ran out, we were on our own. So you're asking people for tape, and if we don't have any, then you're out of luck for that practice or that game.
And then is that the same with sticks and things? Do you have to come in with your own? Or if you break one, is that supplied to you or?
Fortunately for the national team players, we get sticks through Team Canada, Team USA. And if not, I believe CWHL and NWHL gave you 1 or 2 sticks. But other than that, you're on your own.
I think after a few years in Buffalo, you go back to the CWHL. You win the CWHL. So at that point, you've won the Ncaa Championships. You've been an Olympic silver medalist. You've won the NWHL. You've won the CWHL. You're ticking all these things, ticking all these trophies off as you go in wherever you're going.
I'm lucky, honestly. It's attributed to the teams and the teammates I have and the coaches I have. Winning in 2018 with Markham was a really special time. I had just gotten cut from Team USA, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue playing. And I joined Markham just to continue playing for a few weeks. I wasn't sure if they were going to make playoffs or not. We end up making playoffs and going on a pretty special run. So it was a really happy ending to a bitter beginning of the year. And that was one of my favorite teams I've been on.
And you mentioned about getting cut from Team. Obviously, you were still involved with Team USA throughout 2017, 2018. So when it came to that Olympic decision, was that a surprise to you?
A shock.
Because that seemed to be the thing because when I was reading about this, and I was like, was she hurt or something? It's like they wanted to just blow it up and just for the sake of blowing it up. That's what it seemed like from what I read.
It was a shock to me. It was a shock to everyone else in that room.
Because people like Alex Carpenter, they didn't make it either, and
Carp and I got caught on the same day, and it was a shock. We were didn't expect it. Had no inclination that it was happening. Nothing. It was a tough one, but to see some of my best friends win a gold medal, and saying that I helped them train for that and was a part of the beginning of that run is okay. It's a good memory. And to join Markham at the time I did, I think was something I really needed, and it was great. I loved it.
It's like you sometimes need something like you say, Markham, to bring the joy back to it. So I remember we had Chris Stewart came and played for us after a year or so ago, and he said he found his love for hockey back in Nottingham. A year later, he goes to play in the NHL. It sounds like you really found your love for hockey in Markham.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I did. I think it was exactly what I needed at the time. Just to have a group surrounding me that wasn't pitying me, wasn't feeling sorry for me. We were now training for something else, and it was perfect.
Now, when you win that CWHL championship, what is that like? That must have been, because at that point, like I say, you've ticked off all the major North American domestic championships at that point.
When with the CWHL?
Yeah, with Markham.
Yeah, and we hosted it that year.
Cool.
It was in Toronto, but there was a lot of fans there, so it was really fun to experience that against the Chinese team. In overtime, Laura Stacey scores, and they had just gotten back from the Olympics, and she joined, and just a lot of special things happen in a matter of those 6 weeks, I feel like. But winning another championship is always exciting.
I've got many, you mentioned this Chinese team, Kunlun Red Stars. I've got many questions about how this works because I can't find out any consistent information anywhere. Are they actually based in China?
We were, except this year we're based solely out of Russia because of obviously all the travel restrictions and everything going on.
So when you're in the season, when you're playing for Markham, do you have to go to China to play them?
Yes, every team goes to China to play them for 3 games. So you travel.
That's a hell of a road trip.
Yeah, you travel for 6 days to play 3 games. So I went with Markham to China, and then I joined them the year after. And they had 2 teams, and then they cut down to 1 team.
And when you find out that this team's joining the CWHL, are you like, oh, that's exciting, or oh my god, I've got to go on the most insane road trip of all time?
I was excited. I was really excited to go to China. I had never been, and it was pretty fun because when we went in 2018, I think it was. Yeah, we played in Saskatoon at 4 Nations Cup. And so I flew from Toronto or the East Coast somewhere to Saskatoon, stayed there for the week for 4 Nations, and then we went Saskatoon to Vancouver, Vancouver to Hong Kong, and then we took a ferry from Hong Kong to Shenzhen. It's really close, so it's like the most convenient way to get there. And then 5 days later, we were there like super short. We were there like 2 days shorter than everyone else. Then we flew the other way around the world back to Toronto. So I flew around the world in a matter of like 2 weeks, which I think is a pretty cool story.
That is pretty cool. I do like that. That's a statement that you should have like somewhere on a car or something. I've traveled around the world, literally.
Yeah, it was fun in China though. To be completely honest, your focus is not on hockey. You know what times your games are at, but I let myself explore. We went to Oil Painting Village. We went to the Black Market. And we ended up coming away with 5 of 6 points from that weekend, which was pretty great for us. So it was an amazing experience, and I was so happy that I was able to go back and experience more of it with the Chinese team.
Did the wheels start turning then that, oh, this would be a pretty cool place to play?
No, they did not. I didn't think I would leave home at this point of my life, but great opportunity presented itself and just at the right time. So I decided to take it. So it was a lot of travel last year between China, Russia, the States for international games, but made it work and continued to stay on the ice. So it was perfect.
And how did that opportunity come about? Is it just a case of you them reaching out to your agent and saying, would Megan be interested in coming out here?
Nora is actually the one that put the bug in my ear at a friend's wedding throughout the summer. And I just wasn't sure about it, kind of waited on it. I didn't join them at the beginning of the season, and then I knew that they needed a defenseman, and so I got in touch with their coach, who we had played against each other all 4 years of college because he coached at North Dakota, and it just seemed like a really good fit. And finding more ice for myself in Toronto was a bit of a struggle at the time, so it worked out really well.
How did you find the culture change as well? Because China's nothing, I imagine, I've never been, it's nothing like North America.
It's not at all. But you had a lot of like North Americans on your team, but then the Chinese girls, the ones that spoke better English than the others, were such good mentors and helped you out with everything. So it was really great. And they customized a lot. We lived in an apartment, so we had a chef there. So they had to label everything in Chinese and English. You found like your North American things that you pack from home, people told me about, or buying it there. But to embrace another culture like that is something I honestly never thought I would do, and I'm so happy I got the opportunity to do it. And
you get to do that, and then you also you get to go and play these teams because they are playing within a Russian league when you get there. Are they playing in the Russian league when you get there?
Yeah.
You get to explore all these arenas as well, which I don't know if you get any time to explore when you go to Russian cities or things like that.
We actually do, which is nice because our swing would be we'd be in Russia for a while, so we wouldn't have to travel back and forth so much. But my first games with KRS, we were in Siberia.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Like, we land at 10 p.m. at night and we played the next day at 2. So I'm like, oh my goodness. Then we had a day off and then we played again. I didn't leave the hotel because it was so cold. I got on the bus. We went to the game. I got right back on the bus, came back. I was not leaving. I was like, oh, this is crazy. But I'd also never thought I'd go to Siberia. So just fun memories.
That'll make or break you. That will do it.
Yeah, it was so cold. Like it just hadn't been cold at home. It was just ending the fall into winter, hadn't snowed yet. And then you go just from that to that was one extreme to the next that I just wasn't ready for at all. But we made it through, and it's a good story to tell.
And then even better, to cap it all off, continuing the role of good luck, as you put it, you win the Russian Championships.
Yeah, that it was a fun ride, and that was the first time all of our playoffs as well. Well, we had 2 rounds, but the first round was best of 3. We won in 2, and then our finals was a best of 5, and so lucky that we won in 3, our first 3, because we flew home the next day, and then the world shut down 2 days later.
Oh, so that could have been like no winner.
Yeah. Like if we hadn't won in 3, I'm assuming and making a pretty educated guess that our season wouldn't have finished.
Oh.
So it worked out really well, yeah. And then flying home, I flew home on the 13th, and the world shut down on like the 14th or 15th. So it was, yeah, just good timing. Like our flights had been canceled from Russia to Toronto, so we had to get on a new airline, and a lot of moving parts, but got home safe and sound and finished it off with a championship, which was great.
Talk about meant to be.
Seriously. I could still be in Russia right now.
And then that year as well, that's when you get involved with the PWHPA, which is the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. And every woman who I've had on here has been involved in the PWHPA. And it's a very good, I don't know whether organization is the right word for it, because it's almost like a movement sort of thing, like the unification of one professional women's hockey league sort of thing. Why did you decide to get involved with that? Obviously, you had experience with the CWHL, the NWHL. Why did you sign up with the PWHPA?
Yeah, so at the beginning of 2019, I played in 2 showcases. It was great. And then obviously the Chinese thing presented itself, and I took that. But I still paid my dues. I still pay my dues this year to be a member, to be a supporting member, because what they're fighting for and what we're fighting for as an association is a lot more than just getting paid to play. And you can look at a league still running and say that they make money, great, but is it sustainable? Is it moving forward for women's hockey to have so many people play professional, have that as a full-time job? No, it's not. And looking into the PWHPA and all that it has to offer, and even talking about like how we have to bring our own sock tape, like our stick tape, it's crazy. And having full-time trainers and having access to ice and training and everything that comes along with it that you would never think about are things that we need to fight for the future generation, because a lot of us won't even see the perks of this. And that's the harsh reality of it. But knowing that we can help the next line of these girls playing makes it all worth it. So I think what the PWHPA is doing is great, and obviously trying to have talks with the NHL and everything obviously at a bit of a standstill here because of everything going on and all the moving parts. But just to be a part of that association and seeing why we are doing what we are doing is really eye-opening to a lot of people. And I think it's good that we can talk about it and support it, because not a lot of people understand why when there is another league running. But diving into it a bit deeper, I think, helps a lot of people get why we are doing what we're doing.
And it's one of my, I love talking, like everyone I've had on here, I love talking about it. I've spoke to Chelsea, who works there. I email her occasionally and stuff. And I love having you guys on to tell your stories and things. And the common thing is that, like you said, like you might not see the benefits of this, but it's legacy kind of thing. Like, you're involved in this startup like revolution that then became the norm, or as it should be now, but unfortunately it's not.
That's a great way to put it. We want to leave our mark on something that we know will be so big in the future. It's exciting to even talk about it and to see how it will be brought up and how it will become what it is. But having support from the top to the bottom is, I think, what we need right now to really push it forward.
And I know I mentioned this when I spoke to Renata today. The party line from the NHL is that they don't want to be seen as bullying another league out of existence or something. And eventually, it's going to, it will right itself. It will all come to fruition as it should, because that's the way the world is going. And as you can tell, when the Olympics and the World Championships come around, there is an audience for this. And the men's game is leaning more towards the way the women's game is played, with speed and skill, with the way the game is just evolving.
Right. I think, you obviously don't want to shut one league down because of something else. I completely get that. I completely understand. But when push comes to shove, I think time, like you said, time will tell, and it'll all play out like it's supposed to.
And it's one of the things where name value means a lot. And you see the names in the PWHPA. That means that's names are box office. That's all I'm going to put out there.
Yes, I support that statement.
So, one other question I always like to ask is: do you ever foresee a future where female hockey players wear masks instead of cages, or wear visors or something? Because people seeing your face helps them identify. And it's something that hockey struggles with in general on the men's side of things. Like, there's a reason basketball is the fastest growing sport in the world, because you can identify with a person.
Right.
But from when talking to people, the one thing I didn't take into account is that because you wear cages, you're not as aware of like where your stick is if you were wearing a visor, which is something I never took into consideration.
Growing up and playing, I'm not going to say for how many years, I'll age myself.
Don't say that. We're the same age. You can't age yourself.
I've always played with a cage. I've never, I don't feel comfortable. I coach with just a helmet on, no cage. But playing, at this point, I don't think I'd feel comfortable with it. And I could see them switching that though.
Then they go with the bubble.
Again, I don't love the bubble. It's just not for me. I've always been a cage through and through. But that's interesting. I think it will have the option to do so, but I can't tell you when. But it's funny you say that. With our last names in some leagues or some I don't even know what IIHF rules are now, but like the Russian league, you have to have your hair in a ponytail or a braid, or a bun. If it's covering your nameplate, you can't have that, and you'll get one warning and then a penalty.
Oh, wow.
Because they want to see your last name. So people, it's not common at all to wear your hair down. But if it's covering at all, you get a warning and then you get a penalty. So they can see your last name.
And when you see you should just move your name bars to the bottom of the shirt. That'll fix that straight away. You could express yourselves a bit more.
Right.
I'll say that. You might not be allowed to. I can say that.
It's, we've had a few times, maybe the NWHL, we put our nameplates at the bottom, but then if people's jersey got tucked into the back of their pants, it's just a wheel of, all right, don't do that. Okay, pull your jersey out. Okay. Yeah.
Lot of rules in ice hockey. It's one of those.
Yes. Oh yes, lots.
Well, that's when you see like a league like that, and I always use this as an example. The WNBA, that league is growing all the time. When you see that do you see that as like a beacon of hope for ice hockey? Because they have got all these, like say Candice Parker, she plays in it. She's on TNT all the time with Shaq and Charles Barkley and things as an example. That league has to be the goal, doesn't it? That kind of relationship that they have.
100%. The men's side supporting the women's side, like you said, with like Candice Parker on TV and Maya Moore, and now going to see Monique Lamoureux, Miranda is on NBC Sports, I believe she did. Megan Duggan is, Kendall Coyne Schofield, just getting more recognition. Hillary Knight, with doing a lot of that stuff, I think it's going to help. But the WNBA has such a good platform for us to utilize and look at. It's great for them and great for us.
And then one of the big things I think they get as well is that they do have relationships with the NBA teams, because you see NBA players courtside at their games.
Correct.
So if you need, like, if like Sidney Crosby is rinkside for a professional women's game, that means something. So are you as like, you know, part of the international setup of things, do you ever speak with NHL players and things like that?
They're aware of what we're trying to do. I don't know if they can completely come out and say it and support it.
They're in the stands at that All-Star game. The cameras caught them in the corridors.
Exactly. So I think making them aware and seeing that people know that they're aware of what's going on and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to fight for, I think that helps. But seeing the partnership with the NBA and the WNBA is ideally what we would like to get to, and what every women's sport would like to get to with their male counterparts.
So how big do you think that invite for the PWHPA players was to, you know, when they all went to the All-Star weekend in St. Louis?
Huge.
Just for the spotlight, and that crowd was packed as well.
Just the recognition with that, and for them to showcase what women's hockey is all about. I mean, not ideally 3-on-3, but everything in general about it is really helpful for us. So it's great.
Well, one of the things that you could tell that where the NHL were like super respectful about it, you could tell that they're interested. It was that they wouldn't. I've watched interviews with like I can't remember his name now, Mitch Marner, and he was saying that they weren't allowed near the benches during the games because they weren't allowed to be distractions, but they were crowded around TV screens in the back. So it shows that it is of interest to them, which is a huge thing.
Yeah. And Mitch being in Toronto, I know he knows a handful of the girls that have trained at the same facility as him and whatnot. They use the same skating coaches and stuff. Just that support, I think, it will really help us and really grow our game.
That's it. Overall, it's just I think it's a fascinating topic for all the right and the wrong reasons, like with the stick and things. It's just one of those things I could talk about for ages, but
yeah.
So one of my favorite things to do on here is I know that when hockey players are on the road, a lot of the time it's just playing cards and it's not as exciting as when people think it is, but there are always fun stories. So when you look back at your career so far, is there a moment with your teammates that makes you smile or laugh the most?
A lot of them.
That noise is promising.
A lot of them. Oh. There's a lot. Like I said, every team has a special group and a special story behind it. I'd say one of the funniest though, 2013. 2012 when we won the national championship, we were in Duluth, and we found a hot dog stand open at 5 a.m. And so we went to the hot dog stand at 5 a.m. And we were like, why is this place open? We didn't really understand. So we brought everyone back there as well. When we came back to the hotel, like, that place is open. So we went to hot dog stand at 5 a.m. Never thought I would do that. But a funny random one, we were in Ottawa for 2013 World Championships. We had one, so we had a celebration at the top of our hotel, and it's the hotel that it has the revolving like bar on top kind of thing.
Okay.
And we were enjoying ourselves, and one of the girls couldn't figure out why she was like standing in the middle. I won't name names. She couldn't figure out why like people kept moving around her. And so she'd be having a conversation with someone, and then we'd like try to go around and like have a conversation again just to like mess with her. And she literally could not figure it out, like why people were like going around, and she was talking to so many different people. And that one makes me smile and laugh.
Oh, that sounds like it should be on a TV show or something. That's good.
Oh, it was good. Yeah.
So you leave for Russia pretty soon. You must
Yeah,
be excited for that.
I leave on Friday. Yep. So a lot to do still before that, but I'm looking forward to getting back on the ice and playing games. So.
Well, I hope you have safe travels, and I can't thank you enough for
Thank
all of
you.
your time for this.
Of course.
This has been brilliant. I've loved this.
Of course. Yes. Thank you very much for having me and sharing part of my story and part of my journey. So thank you.